What's up, my people? You're in the place for Triple D conversation. My name is Crystron Halqifibrax, and today I wanted to cover side decking, specifically the extra deck. Now, the reason we're going to go for the extra deck today is, quite frankly, this is what allows you in DDDs to give you all your amazing combos. The only real cards that you have in your deck to deal some utter damage are things like Laplace or Ragnarok, or even if you're lucky enough to get down to it, a Rage. But as we're not kind of occasionally dealing damage to our opponents, Rage's effect is very kind of situational, and he can't actually make your opponent lose any life points until you already get them down past 4,000. So that's why we kind of cover extra decking. I'm actually going to go into the choices that I have made specifically for your extra deck, for your side decking. But there are also generic deck profiles that you can change, and you can decide, okay, you know what, I'm going to go for this and switch up my main deck. But today I wanted to just stick to... I don't like it. What's up, my people? You're in the place for Triple D conversation. My name is Crystron Halqifibrax, and today I wanted to cover side decking, specifically covering the extra deck. Now, the reason we're going to be covering the extra deck is because this in Triple Ds is where you get your combos from. If you can't access one of your pieces, you usually cannot make a board strong enough to out attack your opponents. Now, obviously, you can play on the defensive if you are playing DDDs, but preferably, Yu-Gi-Oh! Games do not last more than 5 to 10 minutes. They're usually an OTK within the first round, especially in today's meta. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be switching out our already well-known extra deck, and we're going to be putting in new extra deck pieces. Now, I haven't got the complete format set out for you guys yet, but if you guys want to give me some ideas for the deck profile itself, I'd be more than happy to listen. So to start off with, we are going to go for the worst card in existence. I mean, I was a fan of this guy when I got him. I was really excited to play him. But it just, as soon as I started playing him, it became no longer fun for me, just negating everything my opponents did. They couldn't have fun, and it just seemed a bit sadistic. But saying that, we now have a Mystic Mind format that's come out, so their deck profile is basically just as bad, just as salty, just as annoying. And so this is why I'm kind of okay with potentially switching him in, because he is a massive combo extender. And that is the good old Crystron Halqifibrax. Now, this is in my side deck, it is never in my main deck, but it does give me that occasional option just to deal a little bit extra damage, pump out some negates, and essentially go for an OTK if need be. Now, when you add Crystron Halqifibrax to the mix, for me, I have to add my Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon. Now, this is because they consist in the same exact combo. Using these two together to switch out for something else in your extra deck allows you to go through more combos in your extra deck to pump out those negates and get more items on the field. Alongside that, you have the option for either the Tenyi or you have the option for Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. Now, for sure, my favorite is Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, but the Tenyi just does allow that banishing, and when you're playing a deck that cannot receive any cards back from their banish zone, you're essentially just getting them to -1, especially nowadays when graveyard effects are so common and you've got all these floating effects on field, when shuffled back into the deck, when sent to the graveyard, when banished. It's more often than not they kind of activate when in the graveyard. So that's why I do like my Tenyi, but Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon is just an utter beast and he's very useful. So for this combo specifically, you would have to choose between Crystal Wing or Tenyi. However, you do need to remove 3 of your extra deck cards. Now, I'm going to recommend that you remove, firstly, your Phantom Knights, as well as your no-name Dark Anthalion Dragon, and lastly, your Duo King Kali Yuga. Now, the reason being for this removal is because we basically already have our Kali Yuga once we're able to do the Calamities combo anyway. And so by removing these 3, you're not actually removing too much from your deck in total. but you are allowing yourself to actually access calamities in such a different way regardless. So I'm okay with taking these guys out for these two pieces and any one of these. It's entirely up to you guys what you do, but it does just depend on the matchup. Now when you take out these guys, you can also take out your Phantom Knights of Silent Boots, as well as your rank up magic launch. So that does allow you to have main deck space, which again, having that +2 to decide what you're going to do, there is options there. It's entirely up to you guys what you decide to do with that. Other options that I would like to add for another combo that I actually find really impressive, and I'm kind of surprised nobody's figured this one out yet. So it kind of follows off your generic Satellite Warrior combo, and it's actually using TG Hyper Librarian. So the same combo that gets out TG Hyper Librarian can also get out Ravenous Croco Dragon Archithis, which is an amazing card in general. Not only are you plussing one card from this guy, you're plussing another card from TG Hyper Librarian, setting your hands back to 6 after starting the combo in the first place. Now this does require 4 cards in your hand, but the only extra card from normal, so you have your Kepler, you have your Lamia, you have your Swell Slime, you're also going to need a Ragnarok. But if you pull that Ragnarok piece, and you know it's going to be a long game, maybe against a Mystic Mind player, then just grab your pieces. Make sure you have the ability in your hand to have multiple cards, because it resets your hand to 6 instead of to 5. So that's what I love about these two. And again, you can switch out any of those 3 from the extra deck. So that's what I've got so far. So honestly, that's only 6 cards that we're actually dealing with for our extra deck as it stands. But if you guys have any ideas what you'd like to add to these extra deck cards for maybe some excessive combos, that'd be greatly appreciated if you want to drop them down in the comments. My other concepts I'm actually contemplating right now is getting more Kali Yugas and more Gilgameshes as well. And the reason being is because both Kali Yuga and Gilgamesh, they act as essentially, so Kali Yuga acts as a full negate on the field. And obviously you don't want to see more than one of them, but if you were to switch up your main deck for a few more level 8s, you could get this guy out a lot easier, attack for game if possible. But my most favourite piece is actually Gilgamesh. Obviously because he's pretty dope with that no name. I don't know if I've told you guys that already. But the main reason for this guy is he can go with any other DD on the field and summon back another Gilgamesh. So once that happens, you can trigger a Flame King Genghis' effect, a Flame High King Genghis' effect, or a Triple D Gus King Alexander's effect. So you're getting your cards back from the graveyard just by activating another Gilgamesh. Don't have to activate his effect, it's simply summoning him to the field. And you're utilizing this link space anyway. So not only do you utilize the space to get him off the field for another one of him, but you're sending him to the graveyard, potentially with a Necro Slime in your graveyard, to re-summon another Flame King Genghis. So you have so much potential for all these combos, and I do think it's definitely worth it. Now, for the actual combo that I wanted to show you today, it's going to be the Hyper Librarian and the Croco Dragon. So yeah, let's get right to it. Okay, so for this combo, we're going to start off with the Flame King Genghis. We're going to have a Gus King Alexander, one Hyper Librarian, a Flame High King Genghis, a Curse King Siegfried, a Formula Synchron, a Croco Dragon, a Satellite Warrior, and a Shooting Riser Dragon. Now, you're using a lot of materials here, so don't expect to be able to do too much after this combo. However, you do end up coming up with a +6, as well as multiple negates, especially towards spells or traps. Depending on what level 8 you play, this can really vary your deck, and you can really make room for a lot more combos. You can also make room for a Meteor Burst, Ragnarok Summon, which allow you to special summon something from the graveyard, usually a Lamia, which can also progress your combo even further. Now what I'm going to do to start off with is just show you the hands that you're usually going to get. So you're going to get one Swell Slime, a Kepler, a Ragnarok, a Lamia, and this card doesn't really matter what it is, but there you are, it's a nice little reach. So this card we're going to put aside for now, we're not actually going to use it, and I'm just going to show you what you can do with what we have got. So to start off with, we're going to set our scale just with a Ragnarok, nothing in the other scale itself. We're then going to use Kepler, we're going to trigger his effect, and we're going to grab Gate from our deck. Once we've got Gate, we're going to activate the Gate, and we're going to grab Copernicus to our hand. We're then going to use Swell Slime and Lamia to fusion summon for Flame King Genghis. Once Flame King Genghis is on the board, you're going to use Swell Slime to special summon that Savant Copernicus from earlier. It's then going to trigger its effect, sending a Necro Slime to the grave, as well as special summoning Lamia through Flame King Genghis' effect. Now you're going to Synchro Summon for a Gust King Alexander, which is going to trigger the Ragnarok's effect, bringing back your Lamia. Lamia and Copernicus are then going to go together, and you're going to get a TG Hyper Librarian onto the field. Now at this point it's really important to remember that every time you Synchro Summon a monster, you're going to be able to +1 card. So if you want to bait out your opponent, you can use this effect because usually they'll want to negate their ability to give you more cards. So it's very efficient for just baiting out, generic spells or traps that you just don't want to have to deal with when you get your boss monsters on the field. So it is a really nice card to use for that. But what we're going to do here is we're going to actually, instead of Synchro Summoning, we're going to Fusion Summon using our materials in the graveyard for a Flame High King Genghis. This card on the field triggers Gust King Alexander's effect, bringing back your Lamia, which we can then go for a Lamia and a Gust King Alexander, for a Curse King Siegfried, which is going to trigger Flame High King Genghis' effect, bringing back your Lamia. Lamia and Kepler are then going to go together for a Formula Synchron, and then you can use your Lamia for Dark Contract with the Gate to bring across a Croco Dragon for that Flame High King Alexander and a Lamia. So Lamia is now banished, but you do have a Croco Dragon. Now from this, you're going to get +1 from Siegfried, you're going to get +1 from Formula Synchron's summon as well as Formula Synchron giving you another +1 due to his own ability. You're going to get a +1 from Croco Dragon, and you're also going to get a +1 from the Hyper Librarian from the summon of Croco Dragon. So you're already at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards in your hand. So you've now increased your hand size by 5, which is really nice, but we don't stop there. On your opponent's turn, we go for the Curse King Siegfried and the Formula Synchron to the grave for a nice Satellite Warrior. This is going to trigger Hyper Librarian's effect, so now we have 7 cards in our hands. But it's also going to trigger his own effect, whereby you're going to pop 3 of their cards as you have 3 materials in the grave. Now, if for any reason you are baited out by a generic quick effect, whether it's a spell or trap, you can use Croco Dragon's effect where you discard 2 cards from your hands and target 1 card in the field and destroy it. So usually if there are any spell or traps on the field, just target and destroy them before you get Satellite Warrior out. But if, for example, there's a lot of back row you're playing against and Satellite Warrior does get destroyed, don't worry, because you can still bring out that Formula Synchron, which isn't going to give you another card because it wasn't Synchro Summoned, but it is going to be able to get your Hyper Librarian off the field, who is very vulnerable, and it's going to give you that Shooting Riser Dragon. This Shooting Riser Dragon, again, it's still vulnerable, but it can set you up for next turn by sending a Necro Slime or anything you specifically need to the graveyard. If you have something like a Rage in your hand, consider sending to the grave a Swell Slime or anything of the sort that can special summon it. If you have multiple Rages, maybe you want to get a high monster on the field, maybe you want to use your extra deck a bit more, you have the ability to keep going for that. So not only is this a great combo, but Ravenous Croco Dragon actually gains 500 attack for each card in your hands. So this is attack and defense. So he's only a 1000 attack and defense monster on the field, but with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards added, he's going to gain an extra 3,500 attack and defense. So he's actually a 4,500 beat stick right now, which is pretty damn impressive. So it is a very nice play. Not only that, when it does become your turn, after doing all of your crazy combos, you are actually going to grab another card. So you're now on 8 cards in hand, which puts him up to a really nice 5k each for attack and defense. So depending on what your opponent's board is, depending on what you want to do, you can essentially keep him in defense when he's summoned and leave him that way. It's not often that somebody gets over a 5k attacker, but it also means you won't take any damage if somebody does have Avrimax, for example, which will double your attack and attack you anyway. So yeah, it is entirely up to you, but you end on a massive hand advantage. And obviously you don't have to discard until the end of your turn. So even though you have 8 cards in hand, you're going to keep those 8 until the end of the turn. You've also got an extra 1 from your draw. You're literally just so many opportunities here. You have so much more thinking space and you don't have to worry too much. Not only that, but your graveyard is now filled with material. So if you do want to go for more DDs, get that Necro Slime in there from shooting Rise the Dragon. If you want to go for more tuners, get a Lamia in there, for example. It really doesn't matter what you do, but as long as you go through that play, it is quite a fun one. Otherwise, I really hope you guys have enjoyed that. This is one of my favourite combos of all time, just to show off the sheer ability that Triple Ds do actually have in the current game. If you've got any thoughts or any feedback, I'd really love to hear it. Just drop a message in the comments. It's been great chatting to you all, and I hope you have a great day.